this is a really interesting project. It's a roadway inventory system. It's leveraging roads and highway. I'm speaking first. It doesn't mean I'm actually the least important. The Ting and Bill will talk. I'm very privileged to work. Ting is a genius. Johan from our team is also work on this project, and everybody I work at Transcend is fantastic. So if you have a chance to work with any of these individuals, please make it happen. So the roadway inventory system is built for the Highway Data Services Bureau at NYSDOT. It's headed by Michael Fay and Pat Campbell. Those two individuals are our clients. So they're in charge of highway data, traffic monitoring, and the collection of pavement data, but not the usage of pavement data. They're also responsible for the HPMS submittal, which has to be done annually. So why change the roadway inventory system? Well, first of all, it's old. It's been there for 10. Whoops, sorry. It's been there for 10 years. It's not commercially supported system. It's built on an old technology. The second thing, it's done on a separate platform. New York has basically consolidated all their system in two platforms: ours, AgileAssets, and Esri Roads and Highways. So now they had to enter it in one system and then enter it in another system. So that takes time. Not only takes time, but it's got problem with data integrity. So you could enter a 1 in one system, a 2 in the other system, and you have to reconcile the different information, and there's quality control issues. The other thing, the system was missing some functionality. Here are some examples. So did not support divided roadways. So 10 years ago, everything like a interstate that is divided was considered a single road, and they did work on one side and not the other. It was not possible to capture that information. We're in the world of reverse overlap and intersection and realignment, so that's also was not possible. With this project, New York likes to say, we rediscovered that transportation maps are important. So that's one of the things that was wanted in this project. The access to the information, here by access I mean pavement. So the pavement information was the inventory system because they were collecting the information, and they said, oh, we're collecting it, we have a database, let's put it in there. But nobody within the Highway Data Services Bureau was using the system, was using that data. It was the pavement data that pavement people were using the data. So the system, that data needed to be transferred back with all the problems we know about transferring and interfaces. So that was another problem. And the other thing, I don't want to leave you with an impression that everything was bad about the old system. The system had some good quality, some good process. We challenged those processes, and they had so good process produced good results. There are some key things that we wanted to keep from the old system. The Highway Data Services Bureau is typically about 10 people, 10, 13 people in the road inventory system. It can get up to 30 with temporary staff. Temporary staff has limited knowledge. They don't stay very long, maybe for 2 months for a contract. So the way you enter data needed to be easy and also almost dummy-proof. My favorite bumper sticker is make something dummy-proof and somebody's going to build a better dummy. So. So the new RIS, what it does, because it's built on the Esri Roads and Highway, it fully supports maps. Searching in the old system was very complicated. Now we have a modern search interface. If you wanted to change in the old system, it was hire a programmer, and hopefully you can figure it out within the year. So there's a lot of front-end configuration. Roles definition were not very well defined, so both in terms of permission and view, so that's being supported in the new system. And finally, it's commercial solution. So obviously, AgileAssets, we have been here for a long time. Transcend is the same. Their product is a commercial off the shelf. And Esri, I think everybody knows Esri by now. So just to give you a little idea of the architecture before I turn it over to Ting and Bill. So you got AgileAssets, you got Esri Roads and Highway. Fugro is actually feeding the system. They're the data collection people. So it goes into AgileAsset. That information is used by Transcend through the Road Analyzer and the HPMS assistant to do the HPMS submittal. And what we built this project here, the uniqueness is what you see at the top right called C. That's what's the secret sauce that makes it the modern part of the modern roadway inventory system. And Ting's going to talk more about this. So Ting, so before I turn it over, Ting's going to explain C, and Bill's going to explain Road Analyzer, and we'll touch a little bit on the HPMS, the HPMS assistant. Ting?
All right. So I'll talk about C. C stands for the Smart Entry Engine. Basically, is what we created for this, what we create as this product, is to best support the existing workflow and to migrate. Or in addition to that, we migrate all the data, the original data in RIS. We migrate that to the Roads and Highway system. Therefore, the user do not have to do double data entry, one in the old RIS, one in Roads and Highway. So the first thing I want to, before we go to the C, I want to talk about some other, another software called Event Editor. If we're using the Esri solution, we probably will know why not using the Event Editor that is the Esri solution for event editing. The first one with Event Editor is that the search route function is very limited. What will happen in Event Editor is whenever you want to go to the inventory editing, if you don't know the routes, you have to search for the routes. And then you get the route ID, then you copy the route ID into this, and then you search for the events. That creates a very interrupted workflow. So in the new system, as you will see in a minute, basically we streamline the process. You search the route. As soon as you get the route, you will immediately see the roadway features and the roadway inventories on the routes. Okay. The second one is the Event Editor does not support batch updates events through imports. As you will know that as days go on, nowadays, a lot of the roadway features is basically collected through the automatic data collector, and all those events, they come in huge files. We are not expecting the user to manually type those files into the application. Usually, but as Event Editor does not provide that, does not provide the service, you will have to manually, for each DOT, they will have to manually go to create a geoprocessing tool to import those data into each event that is built in the Roads and Highway, and that creates another. Not only does that requires a lot of user knowledge on the GIS and the geoprocessing service, it creates another problem because it does not fully validate the events. As a roadway inventory user, you will understand a lot of times there are cross-events validations. For example, if it's an interstate, then the median width should be over 2 feet. If it's an asphalt road, then you cannot have faulting distress on it. So, but with Event Editor, even though you can integrate the data reviewer from Esri to it, but data reviewer does not support cross-event data validation. And from NYSDOT, we have a lot of cross-event data validation. This is to ensure the data integrity, and this is one of the big points that we want to inherit from the old RIS, that we want to make sure that new system continue to use that. Next one is we cannot change mile point when you are displaying multiple event layers. This is another thing with Event Editor is if you are displaying multiple events at the same time, for example, functional class, NHS designation, pavement type, number of lanes, you can change the attributes itself, but you cannot change the mile points of those events. What will happen is a lot of times you found out those events. This is especially true when you migrate events from another complete different system to Roads and Highway platform. Is that they do not match completely. There was always a little bit slivers at the beginning or at the end of the routes. So sometimes you will need to extend a little bit, extend the segment for a little bit, and update the events or update all the events downstream that. But event editor does not allow you to do that. And the next one is the grid editing window is not very user-friendly. A lot of time, if you are familiar with, I'm sure everyone is very familiar with Excel, and the freezing columns and the freezing headers is very useful in Excel because you can browse a lot of data attributes with some of the key attributes frozen in the beginning of the row, but event editor does not support that either. And there are some other custom, very useful features that is not supported by event editor, such as sometimes we want to display a calculated read-only field. For example, the total width of the lane it's calculated from turning lanes, through lanes, continuous turn lanes, and shoulders. These kind of things. Event editor does not support that either, and also it does not support, like, we want to add a link to one of the segments and to display a pop-up, display some additional attributes. The last one is the event editor does not support multi-level security management. Sometimes, especially when we have temporary stuff as the highway data services, what will happen is you don't want the temporary the stuff with less knowledge to be able to edit all the attributes. We want to create, we want to have the field level security control like we already have in our AgileAssets, all the product that comes with AgileAssets. So with all these functions, we decided to create a modernized roadway inventory system. That is the Smart Entry Engine. In this Smart Entry Engine, we're still using all the Esri's technology. We're using Esri's REST API to update all the events, to update all the mileage, and also to query all the events as well. And with the Smart Entry Engine, we also use the Kindle UI. That is, the Kindle UI is the new UI we're also bringing to our AgileAssets product as well. So you will see it's a modernized UI which is much more user friendly and much more visually pleasing. So that will bring us to the same page with Smart Entry Engine and the AgileAssets products and other AgileAssets products. So before we dive into before I give you a demo on the new application, I want to just quickly highlight some of the features. So the first one, the landing page of the function is to search by routes. As you can see, the left side, we can search by routes, by all the attributes, and by some of the events as well. As you can search, we immediately will see the search result, the results of the search results, and also whenever the result will be shown on the map, as with any other modern technology. And as you select it, those will be highlighted. And at the end of the search result, you will be immediately go to all the inventory items that you can edit on these particular routes. And then on this inventory editing window, we will be able to have security control on what type of editing you can do. Sometimes you can do insert, sometimes you can do delete, and sometimes you can only edit attributes, sometimes you can only edit the begin and mile points. And also, more importantly, we have the cross-field validation, and this is how we ensure all the data integrity in this huge amount of table. In this case, we have about around 70 attributes that we need to maintain on each route. And also come with all the features. Whenever you select the segments, it's immediately highlighted on the map. Also, you will have different customizable views and mode, meaning that for different users, you'll be able to reorder columns. You can freeze columns that you feel comfortable for your editing, because we understand that there are different users come in with different purposes. Some people are more interested in pavement-related attributes. Some people are more interested into editing the inventory-related attributes. Some people are more interested in editing the traffic-related attributes. So they will want those attributes to come in front of the columns. Therefore, we'll be able to allow users to save that as their own preferred views and make them easier. It makes it much easier to edit. All right, and in addition to that, we understand that there are different subgroups within highway data services that have specific focus. For example, for HPMS, there is a group dedicated for HPMS submittal. Then we we'll have separate windows for that, so you can search specifically by HPMS sample ID. If you work with if you have the chance to work with the inventory guys, you will know that HPMS sample ID is pretty important because that's part of the HPMS submittal, and they have a lot of attributes to it. So what we can do is you can search by HPMS sample, and similar to HPMS sample, we'll also have there is a separate group for traffic, so you can search by traffic station as well, similar to this window, but similar to this one, but a different function. So you can search by traffic or search by HPMS sample, and then we'll display the result. You will also see the result highlighted on the map, and then by click the link, you will be able to edit all the HPMS attributes. And then another important one is we have batch updates. So whenever the Fugo or other data collector vendors that goes out and collect data, we'll be able to upload the events, and as long together with the upload, we'll have run all the cross-validation rules. Then you will be able to see the old data, the new data, what has changed, whether that data has been checked, whether it violate any rules that we already have defined, and if everything was you are comfortable with the result, then we'll be able to commit. Otherwise, we can just export the reports, make changes, and import it again. And the last but least, I want to mention the security management. That's one of the things that we do not see in Event Editor. So in C, the Smart Entry Engine will be able to have field or column level security control, meaning that for each security profiles, we can completely control what right-click functions they can have for each window, which columns they can see, which columns they can write, and so at this level, we can have a much higher confidence with the security control, and it aligns very well with how security is managed in AgileAssets products.
Because he's going to go into the demo. I know he's nervous. Just want to mention this is a project in progress. So right. We're delivering our first build Monday to New York, working software of what's a progress update. But it's not a finished product. So it should go well, but I just want to put it out there.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. So next, I'm going to give a live demo on the first round of the product. Okay. So the product will have yeah, I need to change the.
Do it mirrored.
Yeah, do a mirror. Is it a mirror?
Just while we're waiting, is there any questions for what we've seen so far?
Yeah, I think you have to escape out of PowerPoint. That's what I said. So bring it up. Go ahead.
No.
Bring it up.
Everyone okay?
Yeah, you're good. Bring it up. Yeah.
No worries.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. All right, so this is the landing page of the application. The application will support right now it supports Active Directory logging. So if you are using Active Directory, you'll be able to log in as well. We're looking to support the directory service from NYSDOT as well. So they will have a much wider user to be able to log in. Okay, so you can see on the left, we can search based on multiple route attributes: route number, route signing, route suffix, and jurisdiction, which region it is, which county it is. If you search by route name, for example, let's say 787, it's an interstate with New York route. That's probably not the best one. Let's use 87. 87 is an interstate that goes from the from New York City to goes into Canada. Thank you. So, So as you can see, once I type in 87, we know it is a route. New York differentiate different type of routes is all the numbered routes, and the road is local roads, and ramps are ramps. So 87 is an interstate, so signing shows as I, the route shows as routes. And if we go to region, these are all the regions that I-87 goes to: Albany, Poughkeepsie, New York, and Watertown. And then also these are all the counties that I-87 goes to. If we click Albany County, then and we do a search, you will be able to see that there are two routes I-87 in New York City, because one is in the primary direction, the other one is in the reverse direction. And if we select one of them and go to show segments, and then in this case it's using the Esri's REST API to query the inventory. I think this one does not have inventory on it. Let's pick another one. Okay, this is New York 100. Okay. That one, go to show segments. All right, as you can see, these are all the segments on New York 100A. And as you click through each segment, you will see the map zoomed into that segment. This segment is really tiny, from 0 to basically hundreds of miles. Next one is a bit bigger. I don't see that yellow part. Not very.
Yeah, yellow doesn't show very well.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
So this is, as you can see, it will show up on the map, and then you will be able to click through each of the attributes and edit the attributes. Also, we included the conflict prevention. So you will be able to acquire logs on the events and make changes so other people won't be able to edit the same routes. All right, and then we have other windows as well. For example, we can search the HPMS sample. If you do the search we can search by region and the county, and then we'll be able to search all the HPMS sample.
And you can see that displayed on the map.
Right. As you can see, when you highlight the location of the HPMS sample is on the map, and then you will be able to edit the HPMS sample attributes for all these samples. Similar goes with traffic, and then you can search the traffic station as well. And then we can do batch imports. These are just the windows. Right now, the full function hasn't been fully built yet, but this is what will look like. We'll be able to import the file, and then run the validations, and then commit to the database. And then also remember, we have the security control. You will be able to create security profiles, add delete users, control the right-click action and all the columns that the user can edit or cannot edit, and things like that. Okay, so this is what I want to demo on this particular project. So next, I'll hand the presentation to Bill to talk about the other parts of the risk project, HPMS Assistant and the Roadway Analyzer.
All right, HPMS Assistant is a product that Transcend Spatial Solutions built. It was built because a lot of the DOTs don't have a process that's very clean to bring in pavement data, road inventory data, the characteristics data, the sample data, and all the traffic data into a single place where they can then clean up, edit, validate, and then submit to Federal Highway. So HPMS Assistant was built for that purpose. It actually has an interface that takes you through all of the processes that you would need to do to make sure that the data is pulled in, formatted correctly. There's validations that run on that data to be sure that it meets the required Federal Highway Administration validations, so that when you submit it, hopefully, if you cleaned everything up, you'll have no errors and you won't have to resubmit it. Right now, a lot of the DOTs have to submit, they get all their errors back, and then they have to clean up their data, then they resubmit, and then they have to clean up whatever remaining errors, and it's kind of a back and forth. And loading that data up to the feds takes a lot of time sometimes because their site's not the best in the world to get that mass number of DOTs loading all that data up at the same time. So HPMS Assistant does all of that. There is a tool in there that you're seeing there called Segment Analyzer. It's part of the tool set that we deliver with HPMS Assistant. And what that does is it basically takes linearly referenced data, which could include the pavement data from AgileAssets. It could include traffic from a traffic management system, and then all the road inventory system like you were seeing in C, and integrate that together based on linear referencing. So that's how that a lot of the tool works. So straight line diagramming and a road analyzer is the other thing that we're implementing. When Patrick showed you the slide, there was the two things down at the bottom that we were dealing with. So the first one was HPMS Assistant, excuse me, and that one's more of a reporting tool. This is more of a visualization tool, and again, it kind of pulls the data all together from multiple locations so that you can get that data in front of you, visualize it, and see it better. So why is that important? Well, DOTs have used straight line diagramming for years and years. Lots of them have done this back in the day when it was on Mylar, and they used pens and ink, and they would draw all these big sheets and have all the attributes that they would put about the roadway on these big sheets, and then they'd run them through a printing press and come up with these books. And the guys would go out in the field and they'd take these big 11 by 17 or even bigger than that, for whatever is it, the bigger size. Yeah, big old sheets of paper. And they would have those in plastic format that they could thumb through in the field to make sure the attributes were accurate. That was very clumsy. It was very costly to keep those maintained and to print them. And it did not necessarily lead to the best of keeping the data updated. Lots of times things would get missed and then things weren't accurate. They did move that into a computer-aided drafting environment. Rather than doing it with ink and Mylar, they did move it into CAD. And that did help. It did automate it a little bit. It reduced the cost, but it did still become a manual process. So a lot of folks say, well, that's all great, but now GIS is around. Why do we even need straight line diagrams? Well, really, the main reason is that when you start taking all the road attributes and you lay them on top of the center line, you can't see but maybe one or two or a half dozen at the most attributes about the roadway. You can kind of see there, I made a little line there. Some people have been creative and tried to say, well, I'm going to make this attribute wider and the next attribute a little bit smaller, so you'd have the functional class, and then you'd say, well, I'm going to show whether it's 10 lanes or 5 lanes or 4 lanes or whatever it is, and I'm going to show, keep changing those and making them narrow. And as you can kind of see that little kind of a banded center line, but that's really difficult. You can see how difficult that would be to just visualize it. So the other thing is they've used offsets. They go 10 feet off of the center line and say, I'm going to put the functional class 10 feet off, and then I'll put the AADT on the center line, and I'll put something else below the center line. All those work, but they're very limiting. There's only so many attributes you can still see. And it's very difficult in dense road networks when you get into urban areas. You got all these lines all over the place, and it's difficult to really see which ones goes with which roadway. So that's why straight line diagramming is still important. It is in these newer tools, when we've developed these, and Road Analyzer is the name of this tool, we built it as it's a database-driven interface now. You don't have to manually update the LRS, or the straight line diagram. It's all based off of what's in your LRS, what's in your road inventory, what's in your asset management system, and it allows you to visualize multiple lines. And I'll show you that here in a minute, but you can kind of see in the diagram already. You guys see my mouse? No, I don't think so. The bottom of that diagram here shows you the different attributes lined up along the roadway, and that vertical bar shows you where where you are along the roadway. And I'll show you more of that live here in just a minute. The other thing that we've provided in Road Analyzer that is not just a part of the straight line diagramming environment is we've integrated a lot of other components that you have at your fingertips. So one of the things we've been working with is if you get to a particular asset and you want to look at that asset in detail, you would click on that asset in Road Analyzer. You'd then be able to bring it up in assets and AgileAssets software and the asset managers and be able to look up all the details of that particular asset. Inversely, if you had the asset in AgileAssets and you were maintaining it, and you wanted to look at where all the other assets were relative to it in a straight line diagram, you could do that and visualize all the other assets and roadway characteristics alongside it in the straight line diagram. In addition, we have the video log. You can see here we've got a couple different years of video log. We have the ability to choose which year you want to visualize, or even have multiple years, multiple vendors. So if Fugro was collected for a while and then you had Manley or Pathway or something else that you were collecting for another few years, we can integrate that in the tools called Road Video Viewer that we bring in and bring it in with the Road Analyzer and Google Street Maps. And then in the next one I'm showing, we're actually bringing in LiDAR data now. And this is where being able to identify an asset that might be missing in the asset management system, and then say, okay, well, I need to locate that, clicking on the screen and actually getting a very accurate location for that asset and recording it into AgileAssets software. All right, so with that, oh, and I had the pavement layer viewer, the last thing I wanted to show. We've developed a little tool here to be able to show kind of a cross-section of the highway. As here's all the pieces of pavement that have been laid, and the feds have started to require this to be reported. Most of the DOTs don't have that information, and they're kind of guessing. They say, well, this is an interstate, and this is a typical section on an interstate, and this is what we're going to report to the feds. But then others have some really good information, and they've gone out and done a lot of research to make sure they have that information in the database and have it so they can use it for reporting and to display. So Road Analyzer is the tool that we were talking about that does the straight line diagram. This is, I'm just going to show this to you as the tool is when you would buy it from Transcend. And the opening sessions in the keynote, I think it was Jared that was showing the tool and showed how you could bring it up from right inside AgileAssets. There's a function that they built so they could deep link into the product and bring you right to an asset. So I'm going to show you how it runs kind of out of the box. So there's a lot of different tools here. You can pick different linear referencing methods. So if you had a statewide mile point and a county-based mile point, you could pick which one you wanted. You can, if you're familiar with ArcGIS and its tools, you can pick versions. So you can look at not only what's the master data, but you can look at what you've edited and look at the version of the data that you've edited, so that then you can do some visualization. Did I get this in right? Do I have a full coverage of all my road for all of my functional class and those type of things? And then it does have temporality. It knows how to look into the database and say, well, show me what was done last year versus this year versus even perhaps the future if you're putting your STIP program in there and want to see future projects and things like that. So that's some of the top part here. There's a number of ways then to pick a route. And so once you decide, I'm going to look at the default data, that's the master data, I'm going to look at it as of today. I need to pick a route because Road Analyzer looks at routes at a time, and it looks at all the attributes about that route. So the first thing you do is you find a route. And there's numerous ways to find that. You can search by hierarchy. If you use a county-based mile point system, it's kind of a little bit like what Ting was showing you. You can pick the county, the sign system. So we picked a county here, then it fills in all the viable sign systems. And in this case, there's only one interstate in Berkeley, so it fills it in automatically and so on. If you apply that filter, then it gives you a list of all of the routes that meet that criteria. And you'll notice there's a whole bunch of them here because in that particular instance, there's a northbound route and a southbound route, and then all the ramps that go along with that particular route. So, so that's one way to get to the data. The other way is to look at it from a geographic perspective. You can type in a lat long if you happen to know that, or if you had this device in the field, you can actually say, show me my location, and it'll pick the core routes that you're right around and let you pick from which one you want to use. And then the last couple things here are, if you knew an attribute and say, I want to find all the places where I have asphalt roadway and an ADT over 50,000, it would give you a list of routes that have those attributes. So lots of different ways to get to it. I'm going to take you actually, let me go ahead and get back to the original maps because I know where I'm at then, and get to a chunk of roadway here that I would like to show you. So this particular road is right in Huntington, West Virginia, if you're familiar with the area. I clicked on the route, it picked the route off the map. Same thing it would do as if you went and chose it over here. And then the red and green dots show the beginning and ending of the route based on the measures. If you wanted to adjust those measures visually, you can do that. Just say I want to kind of capture this city and this area, and you just wanted to analyze that route in that part of the city, or you can actually type in a number here. So I'll just go from 6 to 16, for example, and it gives me that part of the route. If you analyze it, then it brings you in and it takes all the information that you've set up to display, and displays all that information on the roadway as a straight line. So this road is definitely not straight. I'll show it to you on the map here in a minute, but it straightens it out, gives you a visualization of it, and then you have several other attributes down here that you can see relative to the road location. This bar, as you move it, it changes the mile point guide right here. So if you watch, I keep forgetting you can't see my mouse, but right here, will it highlight? Can you see it? Okay, good. Oh, good. All right. That is the guide mile point. And if you wanted to see additional information then about any of these particular items, you can hover over them. You can click on them. It gives you additional information. And then all of in this case, we have several complex intersections that were identified based on the Meyer requirements, model inventory of roadway elements, if you're familiar with that. And you can remove them. In this particular instance, we have some of this data. You can see the influence area is displayed up on the top stick as an area on the roadway and as a bar down here. You could remove it up on the top, and then if you didn't want it on the bottom either, you can remove it here. Okay, so some of this stuff is pretty obvious. Functional class, county, and district don't really change. Let's look at guardrail. That's actually more of an asset rather than a classification of the roadway. So we've got good guardrail conditions on all these, and you can see we got one over here that's poor, that's red. So it's, the color and the ranking here in text is kind of redundant. Maybe we want to change the style to say I want the label to actually read. Let me find my guardrail so I can turn on the label, and I can say I want to look at the guardrail, and I don't want to see the text saying good. I want to see the text saying what kind of rail it is. And I'll make that a little bigger, and let's get a darker color on the map so it shows up or on the screen, and close that. So then it puts you can control what in the database you want to see. So now it's putting the type of guardrail it is. And up here, it also labeled it on the straight line. And you'll note that we have it placed up here based on a location attribute. So in the guardrail table, we have left and right. And so we placed it spatially and visually so that you can see it on the left and right. Okay. So we're getting a little low on time, but let me show you a couple of the integrations. The Google Street View is an important one. It really does help visualize where you're at. So there's the roadway, and you can see if I scroll down here, there's an intersection right here. This is what this delineates, this little plus, and you can see the intersection up ahead of where the ramp comes in. And so if I move this forward a bit and move me to the, whoops, I didn't let go. Move me to that location, you can see the chevron as well, the chevron sign in the sign inventory. And the same with the bridge. So if I move up here to the bridge, I'll get close to it. It's a long bridge, and that particular data set has point bridges. So you can see the bridge is here, but we aren't in the middle of it. If I move to the middle of the bridge, we'll be in the middle of it over the road. Okay, so that's just a little bit of functionality that you can use to integrate. We did the same thing with the map, so you can see this really isn't a straight road. It is a curved road. Let me go ahead and close the video log so I don't have too many windows open here.
If you have multiple monitoring.
Yes, and that's a very good point. You see these pop-out buttons. If I were to take and say one screen and another screen, I could put the map on one screen and the straight line on another, and they would stay linked. So as you move along them, you can see the yellow dot moves along with the movement of the guide bar and along the straight line. And it keeps you all in sync. And if you had the video log and the map and everything on the straight lines up, it would keep all of those in sync as well. So it's really nice if you get these GIS geeky guys that have the 3 monitors, and they can pull all this stuff up and look at it and make sure that everything is right in their databases. All right. You can save any settings, so if you change the colors of things or those attributes, you can save all those, and you have a default that's, it is what it is when you open it up, but then you can say, I want bill settings, open it up, and it'll change the bill settings. Instead of showing the good on the guardrail, it'll now show rail, and it'll save that out there. And that's just a matter of under styling saying save the template, and I save a template, and then I can load a template if I have another one. You can do red lines and mark on the straight line, here's a problem, look at it. You can then say send a notification to somebody, and it will email them and say here's the area that's bad or that has a concern, and shows the red line of what is wrong with it, and they'll see that, and then you can make corrections in the database or in the AgileAssets software. And printing is another capability. It will set it up and print it out. So there are still those places that want hard copies. And so if they want to be able to print out those hard copies, they can do that. So with that, I'm going to end because I think we're right up against the time here, and allow questions.
Okay, thank you. I thought that was an excellent presentation by all the guys there. We're ready for some questions in the room. Does anyone have any questions? No? Oh, hey, Jared.
Everybody wants to go home.
What is your primary method for the user to fill in some of this data? Is it being auto-populated in some way, or there's an import method, or
to get the data into
manual
Road
manual
Analyzer?
inspection for some of those? I mean, because there's obviously a lot of really great data that you've got right there, but I just imagine it would take a lot of time, or you're using some automation or something like that.
Well, it's kind of a combination of a life cycle that a lot of these DOTs have gone through. A lot of this road inventory is all collected, and they have to collect it every year. So they use everything from the video log vans and road inventory.
It's all of it then?
Yeah, to capture it that way. Some of it is manually entered. West Virginia is where this is at, for example. They have commissioner's orders, and when the commissioner's orders come down and say this new road construction's been done, it lists all the attributes that need to be updated in the system.
Just all the standard collection methods and mechanisms. Same things we're using.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And so it's the same database, and if you have your asset database all developed and a road inventory database all developed, it's just pulling that data together and using the linear referencing keys off of that to line it up and display it together.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Yep, coming over.
I was just wondering about C, Ting. Is that on a versioned environment that you're editing data?
You mean the Esri version?
No, in what you were showing us with C, yeah. Is it looking? It's editing the roads and highways data, yes. Event data. Is that in a versioned environment? Or yes. You okay?
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is that at the very top right corner is the version. The version you are editing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the event editor typically it will retire one event and then puts the new event on it. Does yours do the same?
It does the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
There it is. There's the version.